Thanks for being here. And we have actually two announcements that we'll be making in the course of this press conference, two totally different announcements. And so what I'd like to do is we'll make the first, there'll be a series of speakers, and we'll take questions on that announcement, and we'll have a relatively short break. And then there'll be a second announcement with speakers and Q&A. If you have any other questions, members of the press, if you have any other questions outside of the two announcements that we'll be making, please see Mark, and he'll make arrangements for me to respond to those questions. But for these two press conferences, I'll just take questions here about these two announcements. As you can see, I'm joined by a great array of public servants and public officials, elected officials as well. I want to thank our district attorney, Seth Williams, for being here for this announcement, and certainly along with him, Ed McCann, as well as Lori Malone, Municipal Court President Judge Marcia H. Nyfield. I want to thank Judge Nyfield for being here with us, and Common Police Court Judge Gary Glazer. First Deputy Police Commissioner Richard Ross is with us, representing, of course, Police Commissioner Ramsey, and our Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Chief of Staff Everett Gillison, along with Director of Public Safety Mike Resnick. I want to take a moment to recognize our Commonwealth partners, without whom we would not be able to be here today talking about a new day in the adjudication of violations of the state's vehicle code, namely the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, the members of the General Assembly, and Governor Corbett. Through administrative and legislative action, these men and women have reformed an institution that quite honestly has become a mockery to the standards of even-handed justice in an area that impacts thousands of Philadelphians every day. That is namely the interaction of the motor vehicle laws with our citizens aimed at protecting the safety of every motorist, pedestrian, or other user of our city streets. More than 100 years ago, a noted journalist called Philadelphia corrupt and contented. If that label were true then, I want to assure everyone here today that it no longer applies in this city. Philadelphians want honest, transparent government. They want city services provided in a fair and equitable manner. They do not want a system where service depends on who you know or who you are. It's just not too much for our citizens to ask for and demand integrity in public service. From day one, my administration has sought to foster the highest ethical standards in government, and both hardworking city employees and the general public have responded. The overwhelming majority of all of our public servants want to do and actually do the right thing each and every day. But to strengthen that culture of ethical public service, I created the position of a Chief Integrity Officer, greatly strengthened the Office of Inspector General, and charged both with rooting out those who would abuse their office or steal from the city taxpayers, or taxpayers or other business people who have sought to corrupt our own public employees have also been pursued and, in many instances, prosecuted by the appropriate prosecutors for their crimes as well. Day in and day out, we are seeking constantly to change the mindset about ethical behavior in our city to the positive. And thousands of employees have received ethics training. Some have been fired for their unethical behavior. And some businesses have certainly been exposed, paid heavy fines, and some have gone to jail. Today we're here to make an announcement about an institution that has gained, unfortunately, a very noted negative reputation, and namely the Philadelphia Traffic Court, where over decades of scandal was unfortunately as unpredictable as the tide on the Delaware. But starting in September of 2011, a series of critically important events have brought together a remarkable group of people who are committed to a new professional court pledged to the highest standards of justice and fairness, integrity, transparency, and openness. You will recall, unfortunately, that in September of 2011, the FBI executed a series of search warrants involving traffic court officials. By December, Pennsylvania Supreme Court appointed Common Pleas Court Judge Gary Glazer as the traffic court's administrative judge. As the FBI investigation continued and a Pennsylvania Supreme Court ordered review of the traffic court advanced, legislation was introduced into the Pennsylvania General Assembly aimed at amending the Pennsylvania State Constitution to abolish the traffic court and transferring the duties of that court to the city's municipal court, now known as the Traffic Division of the Municipal Court. Almost a year ago, those bills were signed by Governor Corbett. And while the amendment process requires a second action by the General Assembly and passage and approval by the governor and passage by the state's voters, the winds of change and reform have now reached a critical point. Today, as a handful of former traffic court judges and others stand trial in federal court on charges that they committed fraud, we are here today to talk about a new traffic division of municipal court. In a moment, you'll hear more of the details from our district attorney, Seth Williams. I have just a few points that I'd like to make first. First and foremost, all of us have a public safety duty to make our streets as safe as they can be, whether it's the streets department improving the design of a dangerous spot or simply repaving, or the police department cracking down on bad drivers who endanger pedestrians, bikers, and other motorists. Traffic court plays a critical role in this process. Sadly, what we've learned in recent times is that this court has operated with two tracks in dispensing justice, one for the connected and one for everyone else. It is a system that had to die. It must go away. Deputy Mayor Gillison and I concluded that one of the most important actions that the City of Philadelphia could do to provide funding for a dramatic increase in the professional administration of justice in the Traffic Division of Municipal Court. Subject, of course, to the approval of Philadelphia City Council, we have agreed to provide funding to the District Attorney's Office so that a highly trained team of prosecutors and paralegals will now be assigned to the Traffic Division of Municipal Court. Coupled with the assignment of a team of hearing officers and municipal court judges to handle certain cases, this court will rise from the ashes of a tainted system and provide true justice here in the city of Philadelphia. No longer will politically or otherwise connected defendants be able to count on special consideration, apparently known nodding and winking from certain court officials. Philadelphians have a right to the honest services of their court officials and all others in public service. The new Traffic Division of the Municipal Court will play a key role in making the streets of Philadelphia a safe place where we can all go about our business and where, if someone violates the law, they will have access to real justice. I want to thank everyone for their involvement. You'll hear from a series of speakers, the first of whom is our District Attorney, Seth Williams.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to first thank the Mayor, Judge Glazer, and Judge Nyfield for their leadership. No one, including myself, no one wants a speeding ticket. But every Philadelphian wants a judiciary that we can be proud of. Every Philadelphian wants a court system that is fair. My office has been working with the First Judicial District and the Mayor to develop a plan that efficiently and, most importantly, fairly handles these cases. Again, because of the leadership of our Mayor and the First Judicial District, a traffic court unit of the Municipal Court will be established. That unit will handle approximately 500 cases a day. It will be staffed by 4 assistant district attorneys and 10 paralegals that work at the district attorney's office. As you know, under the leadership of Judge Glazer, traffic court has made great strides in the past year. This is a unique and great opportunity to restore the public's trust and confidence in our traffic court system. This wasn't a responsibility or a task that our office sought out. But when the mayor came and when Judge Glazer came and said to us that we need to restore the public's confidence, that we have to professionalize our traffic court system, we of course agreed. We look forward to this partnership. We look forward to working with Police Commissioner Ramsey and the police officers and supporting the citations that they believe have to be enforced if we're going to have a safe street for all of us to travel. So again, I'd like to thank the mayor, Judge Glazer, and Judge Nyfield. We look forward to working with them to ensure that the public's confidence and trust is restored in our traffic court system. Thank you.
Thank you, DA Seth Williams. Now we'll hear from Municipal Court President Judge Marcia H. Nyfield.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like the opportunity to thank both the mayor and the district attorney for making this change and this huge change happen so easily. I remember sitting in a meeting with Mr. Gillison and the mayor and Judge Glazer and others as we were talking about the changes that we would like to make. And without batting an eye, when the first suggestion of having district attorneys staff the courtrooms down in the traffic division was mentioned, they said, fine, we're in, we'll do whatever we need to do to make it happen. And here we are, the district attorney is fully on board, and municipal court has long had a reputation of being the people's court. Obviously, there's so many people who find themselves before the traffic division, and I believe this new change will enable all people who come before the people's court to be welcomed in the traffic division as freely, as they've been welcomed elsewhere throughout the court.
Judge Nyfield, thank you very, very much. And now Common Pleas Court Judge Gary Glazer.
Good afternoon. I learned as a lawyer to never disagree with judges, so I will just echo what Judge Nyfield said. This change is absolutely stunning and dramatic. It is one of the most extraordinary changes that I have seen in my close to 3 years presiding over traffic court. Credit has to be given to the mayor, to the district attorney, to Everett Gillison for making this historic change so easy and so workable. We have been struggling for the past, as I said, close to 3 years to change a culture, to change something in practices that have been so ingrained in that court that most people who worked there thought that this was really how you did business, that this was a normal way of operation. We have been working very carefully with the staff, with the new hearing officers, to make this into a much more user-friendly, people-friendly, law-friendly environment, and we look forward as we continue along this road to make traffic court someplace where people can actually be proud as an institution. So thank you.
Judge Glazer, thank you very, very much. And with that, we'd be glad to take any questions about this particular announcement. Mike? There's some amount of activity going on actually right now, but I think it's safe to say full operational activity July 1, the start of the new fiscal year. But there are already activities going on right now at Traffic Division.
Well, when we begin, there'll be assistant district attorneys that are currently assistant district attorneys. This will also allow us to backfill by hiring 4 additional people that will be assistant district attorneys, but we will be hiring new paralegals that will be assisting with the daily operations to ensure that the cases are prepared. As I said, this is a huge undertaking. There will be about 500 cases handled in this traffic court unit every day. That's safe to say, yes. I mean, we fluctuate almost every day.
I'm not sure. And how, under the old traffic court, the broken system, how were these, who handled the prosecutorial aspects?
Certainly. So in traffic court, and it'll still be at 8th and Spring Garden. We'll still have traffic court where it is currently. But in the past, the person who received the ticket would go to traffic court. There was police personnel that staffed each courtroom, and they would, for the most part, state what the officer who witnessed the behavior that brought that person to court, they would testify what they observed. And so a police officer staffed the room and served basically as a prosecutor and witness in the courtrooms. And so now the cases that when they are contested, there'll be a prosecutor that will handle the case in court.
It's not, yeah, I think it's not just the 4 ADAs, it's also the paralegals. This full implementation for this is approximately $800,000. It's going to be amended. This is something that we've been working on for a while. Everything was not in place at the time that the budget was introduced, but it's a proposed amendment to the budget process. We're as I mentioned in my remarks, certainly hopeful that that particular amendment to the budget is approved by City Council, but it was not ready at the time of budget. We still had things to work out, logistics. Any other questions on this topic?
Receiving some state funding on all sectors?
Yeah. So we're focused on the $800,000 in our amendment. We'll be glad to talk to the Commonwealth, but given some of the challenges that they've been experiencing recently, most of our focus, financial at least with the Commonwealth, is more on education funding than anything else. We're going to move forward with this. If there are dollars that we could potentially get from the state, obviously we'd be glad to receive them, but they have some challenges. We need to move forward, and we need to do this now.
My term expires in December. Whether I will continue to serve or not is really at the pleasure of the Supreme Court. I don't hear cases at traffic court except under very unusual circumstances. Okay.
Talk about some of the specific advantages to having a team of trained prosecutors there versus the old system.
I can try that. That'll be fine. The bottom line is that we're trying to change the entire process, and one thing that you have to deal with in changing culture is that you can't expect to do the same thing with the same folks and expect a different result. So we're trying to bring in new ideas and new ways of doing things, changing the entire process, changing the culture, and having a better outcome. So that's what we're doing, and that's how we're making this investment today.
We also want to make sure, I mean, I wasn't exactly sure where you were going with your question. I mean, the police department will still have a role, but it is a lessened role. This change has nothing to do with the Philadelphia Police Department or any of the officers down there. It is, obviously, there's a significant response to any number of scandals that we've had over time, but the larger issue is the folks who really should be putting on cases are, as in any other courtroom, is normally a prosecutor, or in some cases it'll be a paralegal, but out of the DA's office. I mean, this is just good management. It has nothing to do with the Philadelphia Police Department and their role. Philadelphia police officers will still be there, but not in that first position, if you will, having nothing to do with the fine service that they've provided at traffic court in the past. So, Your Honor, I think you have.
Well, one of the problems is a lot of these tickets are resolved through plea bargaining. And a thought is that it would be better to have a more uniform legal view of plea bargainings rather than put the police officers in the unfair position of representing the party that writes the tickets and then having to make the plea bargains as well. We're looking for a little fairness, uniformity, having the police do the role that is really what they're suited for, and have others do the role that they're suited for. Okay? Yes.
Because it's shifted to municipal court, that those judges hearing these cases will need to have legal background as opposed to.
Yes. Well, the hearing officers that have already been hired and are hearing cases now are all lawyers. The judges from the municipal court are all law trained as well. We do have one remaining traffic court judge from the other system whose term will expire, I think, in 4 years or so. The other cases are being heard by visiting district justices from other counties who may or may not be lawyers. But we're trying to get the focus more with legal training, law-trained individuals. Right, there won't be traffic court judges elected as under the old system.
How many courtrooms are functional in a normal day? Will there be DAs?
Well, we have redesigned the interior of traffic courts, so there's now several courtrooms, but there's 6 hearing rooms. So hopefully they will all be operating. And then there will be 1 or 2 judges that would be hearing matters in regular courtrooms. But it's quite a different place than it was physically and mentally. Some of the paralegals will be handling some matters. Some of the ADAs will be floating through, supervising. Some will be in front of municipal court judges. We are figuring out how to fly the airplane at the same time that we're building it. There's no book on how do you start a new court.
And Mike, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this in my comments earlier, so my apologies. We said there'll be about 500 cases will be handled daily in this traffic court unit. But all of them aren't cases in which the person that received the ticket could lose their liberty. So most will be people who received the ticket for speeding or they did some sort of moving traffic violation. But there are some people who have so many tickets that they have to go to a special courtroom, right? And so we'll have hearing examiners for those that just received tickets. But there are municipal court judges that will be hearing the actual cases in which the defendant could lose his or her liberty. Those trials will be prosecuted by assistant district attorneys. So just the other hearing rooms where it's just speeding tickets and people want to adjudicate, they're going to pay it, they're going to get points, they don't want to get the points, those will be handled often by the paralegals. Right, and so again, as Judge Glazer had mentioned, we'll have a uniform system of protocols to handle in all of those courtrooms that in some ways in the past we did not hear or did not have, as you heard earlier. But for those cases in which the individual could lose his or her liberty, they have the absolute right to be represented and will be more professional, being that we will have prosecutors that handle those cases as well, and they're heard by municipal court judges.
I'm sorry.
Is there a place online the public can help navigate through the new policies and procedures?
Not yet.
I think not yet. Soon to come. Soon to come. Yeah. Or there will be soon. Yes, yes.
We
All-
do have a website where people can pay tickets online.
It's not up to date for July 1st.
No.
Yeah. So it's still building it. Still building it. Okay. Last question on this? Sean?
You mentioned Lincoln Stevens were contented and said that we're moving past it as a city. Tomorrow on the ballot, we have state representatives, state senator facing charges, 4 who are, not facing charges but took action in the case. Do you think the city is really heading in the direction on ethics and corruption? Or
Yeah, I do every day. I think that when you look at the broader picture, I'm not going to comment on any of those particular cases. Folks may be charged. They've not been adjudicated in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not going to comment on those cases. But, just because you're making progress doesn't mean that everything is perfect. We're still dealing with human beings. People do all kinds of things. We'll see what the end result of that of those matters are. But I think at least in city government, this is the part that I'm responsible for. Those folks don't work for me. I think it is pretty clear that if you look at where we've been over the last 10 years or so and where we are today, and some of this, of course, was prior to your time, this was a regular unfortunate occurrence in our city government, that issues of corruption and ethical violations, were regular front-page stories. We stay focused on it. It is the work in the government, certainly the Inspector General, Chief Integrity Officer, but also public employees who, report that people try to corrupt them, and know that they can turn that information in and with confidence that something is going to happen. So I'm probably, unfortunately, never going to be able to stand at a podium unless I have a press conference in heaven and say that everything is perfect. But things are absolutely better than they've been in a long, long time in our city government. Thank you all very much. And as I mentioned earlier, there'll be